Greetings. My name is Dave Bianchi, and I'm a web manager here in Santa Clarita and a longtime member of the Santa Clarita WordPress Meetup group. This is the 2 p.m. talk with Topher DeRosia in the Colossus track. Topher is senior WordPress architect at Camber Creative. He brings more than 25 years of experience as a web developer, over a decade of which has been spent building out WordPress sites. In addition, he curates HeroPress.com. Fun fact, Topher was building web pages before CSS and JavaScript were invented. Today, Topher will be presenting a review of custom fields libraries, ACF, CMB2, and Metabox. Feel free to add your questions to the YouTube chat feed and we'll answer those at the end. And now, please take it away, Topher.
Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Custom Field Libraries. We're going to take a look at Advanced Custom Fields, CMB2, and Metabox. This will mostly not be a how-to. There will be a little bit of code, but it's mostly a survey of what these can do and what each one is good at and what each one is not so great at. My name is Topher DeRosia. I'm a senior WordPress architect at Camber Creative. I also curate HeroPress.com. You can find me at Topher at CMBR.co and Topher at HeroPress.com, and pretty much everywhere on social and Slack as Topher1Kenobi. Feel free to find me and ask me questions about anything you see in this presentation. So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about what custom fields are. These are fields that you can add to a WordPress post type, whether it be regular posts or any custom post type, that are, just like it says, custom. You can ask any question you want. Name and address, favorite flavor of ice cream, anything you want. The libraries we're going to look at today make it easier to add these fields. WordPress has code to do it out of the box, but it's a lot more complicated than it needs to be, in my opinion. And we're going to discuss what a code library is. It's a set of pre-written code to simplify an otherwise complex task. So as I mentioned, WordPress comes with code to make custom fields, but it can be tedious and you end up repeating yourself a lot. A code library abstracts some of that repetition and really only asks you the relevant questions about what's unique about each one, and then applies the repetitious stuff behind the scenes. And the projects we're going to look at today are kind of half library, half not library, and you'll see why. I want to show you some examples. This is a picture of a post in Gutenberg, and at the bottom here's a Metabox, and it says custom fields, and then on the left is a custom field, and on the right is the value. Now this is what comes out of the box with WordPress. This is in every WordPress install. Usually it's not turned on. In Gutenberg, you have to hit the three little dots here at the top right and go to settings and turn them on. And you would type in a value here. So you could type in the word birthday and over here a date. The disadvantage is that you have to write in the name exactly right every time on every post. And you can't really ask a client to do that. I can barely do it myself. So we want to do it a little nicer. And so here's an example. I recently wrote a plugin to rate beverages, specifically whiskeys, on my site. So the Metabox at the top is labeled beverage information. And then the labels on the left of each Metabox, there's more information and it specifies URL. And you can only put a URL into that field. It will not accept another one. There's year, and it will only accept a number. Batch only accepts a number as well. There's currency. Price only accepts a number. And then rating. That's actually a custom field. Behind the scenes, it's a text box, and it holds a number. But the cool user interface created by the library allows me to render it as stars, and I can click on those. So that's some of the advantages of using custom fields and a custom field library, as opposed to just what's built in. So we're going to look at three common libraries: Metabox, CMB2, and Advanced Custom Fields. The first one we're going to look at is Metabox. You can find it at metabox.io and wordpress.org. It's freemium, and the free package does a lot. The paid modules are really pretty advanced, and you can get by with the free stuff for a long time before you start needing the others. But if you need to buy some more, there's $99, $199, and a $4.99 lifetime package. So let's take a quick look at that. Here's the website. The features are here. It handles custom post types, custom taxonomies, settings pages, user profiles, custom fields, register forms, etc. So we're going to take a look at how to use this. So I said this wasn't a real how-to, but I am going to show you how to get a little started. We're going to make a plugin that creates some custom fields on posts. So I have a post here. It's called The Jungle Book, and it's just a regular post. There's not much there. So I want to create a Metabox that holds some extra information about whatever book I'm reviewing in this post. So we're here at metabox.io. We're going to the top left here. There's an online generator. Now, this is going to feel a little familiar to you if you're used to ACF, but it's different, and you'll see why. So this is just on their webpage. So I'm going to go to Settings first, and I'm going to create a Metabox. So we'll call it Book Information. And our group ID, field group ID, would be Book Information. And this is what keeps all your custom fields together in one Metabox. We're going to do it on post types. You'll see there's only page and post here. You can change it in the code, and if you have the paid version, you can put in any custom post type you want. Position is after content. You can do it in the side, and if you're using the classic editor, you can do before and after post title. I'm going to leave it right after content. My priority is high, which means it's going to be above everybody else. And I do want this information included in autosaves. And I'm going to skip these two. Your text domain you would set to match the text domain in your plugin. I'm going to leave that for a moment. So I just hit generate code, and here's the code to make the box, but there are no fields. So now I'm going to make fields, and I want a text field labeled author name. And that's it. I'm just going to leave it like that. And we'll do another one for ISBN, and we're done with that. And we'll do a URL for a book URL, and it might go to Wikipedia or something like that. Oh, except I made this a text box, and I don't want that. So let's go URL. And you'll note that I'm prefixing these with book _ because if I just left this URL, there are a lot of other fields in WordPress that might be called URL, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Author name, ISBN, and URL. I'll show you what's under advanced. There's date. Actually, yeah, we'll throw in a date, and we'll make it copyright date. Whoa. There you go. Now you have the option to save it as timestamp or not. And there are date picker options. It uses the jQuery date picker setting, so you can get crazy there if you want. So we have 4 fields. Other potential fields under WordPress, you could save this as a post. You could include a post like relationship or a taxonomy or a user. You can include upload files or upload fields. And you can have some layout things. So you can have a header, a divider, that sort of thing. We're not going to do those. So generate code. So there's my code. And it says right here, paste this into functions.php. Don't do that. ever. Just don't do it. We're going to make a plugin, and I'm going to show you how. It's really easy. In plugins, I have a plugin called Pluginception, written by Otto. And right here, it makes create new plugin. And we say, let's see, Metabox book information. And everything else is optional. I'll make it version 1, author's Topher. We'll leave it at that. Create a blank plugin. There. Now we have a plugin. That's all there is to it. So now I'm going to go back here, copy this code, and I'm going to skip the PHP tag at the top, and paste it right there. Now we want to change a couple of things here because this is default stuff. So your prefix register metaboxes. We'll make this Topher. And then of course you need to find the matching one here. There we go. And you would change your online generator to be whatever your text domain is, but we're going to leave that alone for now. So this is the code. You could have written this by hand. There's a prefix that we're not using. There's a Metabox array, and the array holds a title, an ID, context, autosave true or false, and the fields. And then it returns the Metaboxes. Click Update File. We go to Installed Plugins, and it is already activated. So now let's look at our post. And it's not there. And I know exactly why. Because even though I wrote code for this, I need the plugin itself. So let's grab it. Right here, Metabox Custom Fields Framework. And go back to posts. Dun-da-da. There we have author name, ISBN, URL, copyright date. If I click copyright date, it gives me the cool little calendar because I chose that type of field. URL will not let me save with something else, I don't believe. Let's see. Yeah. So it makes a little error at the top. It says, please enter a valid URL. So I'm actually going to take that data back out because I'm going to name other fields the same. Or actually, no. Let's put something in here. Rudyard Kipling, ISBN. I have no idea what it is. URL. We'll just do example.com because I don't know when. Copyright date was today. Update. So there we go. So that's how you make custom fields with Metabox.io. So now I'm going to go back and deactivate those plugins, and we'll talk about Metabox a little bit more. So one of the pros, some of the pros of Metabox, it can be included as a library in commercial plugins and themes without any extra licensing. So if you are building a plugin that you're going to sell, you can include Metabox even though it is a paid plugin. You cannot include the paid part of Metabox in a free plugin. So you'll have to think about that. It's code-based, so it's very, very fast. It never hits the database for storage of settings and things like that. Code-based options are always going to be much faster. There's excellent support. It's a commercial product, and there are really good people behind it. It has excellent, unique field types. You saw the date there, but there are some pretty crazy ones. There's one that I really like for geolocation, where if you give it a Google API key, then you can type in the name of a city, and it will go out and get coordinates for you that you can use to build maps. And it can be used to make Gutenberg blocks without knowing React. ACF can also do this. CMB2 cannot. So that's one advantage there. Cons. As I mentioned, it cannot be included as a library in free plugins and themes. You can include the free version, but you can't include the really cool stuff. And many of the most unique field types are not free. That is a con. Now, if they're useful to you and you're going to use them in your business, then by all means get them. I mentioned you can include it in commercial plugins, but you can also include it in commercial client sites. So if you're just building sites for your clients, you can include it in theirs. So next, let's look at CMB2. Found at CMB2.io, GitHub, and WordPress.org. And it's 100% free. So I'm looking here at the GitHub page because for me, it provides the most information. Once you get past the code list, there's a ton of links in here to, here's basic setup instructions, field types, just all kinds of really great stuff on this page. So let's take a quick look at how to use this, and then we'll talk about some pros and cons of this one as well. So first thing we're going to do, unlike last time, is install CMB2. There it is. There. Now that's installed. So right here, there's some basic usage instructions. And the instructions talk about first how to include it as a library, which we're not doing. We're including it as a plugin. Including it as a library is easy and painless. And they even do a really good job of making sure that if it's included more than once, it will use the latest version wherever it finds it. So if you have an old plugin with an old version in it, and you install a new plugin with a new version, it will use the new one everywhere. But here's the code to create a Metabox and some fields. You'll see that it looks quite similar. Whoop. Oh, come on. To Metabox.io. Oh, you know what? I bet I can just click this right here. Copied. Perfect. There's a function. Here's a little function to create the Metabox. In Metabox.io, you create the fields inside the Metabox function. With this one, you just add them on ad hoc, as many as you need. So let's go back here and create a new plugin. CMB2 book information. Yep, there we go. Version 1. Author Topher. There we go. And we're going to throw our code in right there. So it could be done just like that. And it would make one called test Metabox, which we don't really want to do. I'm going to leave my function name this time. You should change yours to something unique. So there's no generator here. I have to change things if I want. So I'm going to change my ID to book info, and we'll change the title to book information. And the post type right now is page. We don't want that. We want post. Context is normal. Priority is high. Do we want to show the field names on the left? Yes, we do. Optionally, we could turn off their default styles, which you don't want to do. You don't want to rewrite your own. And you can have the Metabox closed by default. We're going to get rid of those. And then our first field is a text field. And we're going to call it book author. And here's the field description. We'll put in the book's author. Your prefix text. Oh, I see. Your prefix is something unique to you. So we'll call it Topher text. Now, I have forgotten the field names I chose for the other one. But if I made them the same, you would get the data because the data is still stored in the database. Maybe we'll call it book author. We'll see what we get there. Book URL. Now here's text URL again, and you can make this one repeatable if you want. So you could say, how many URLs do you want to have? And just keep adding them. CMB2 has more text types than Metabox. There's a short one and a medium one and a long one and a URL one and a date one and all kinds of stuff. So here we're going to have ISBN, and I'm just going to take the description off this one. Call it book ISBN, and this one will just be text. Get out of there. Now I want to see if they have a date type. I'll bet they do. So here's the field types. And here they all are. So I'm going to, oh, don't do that. Date. There we go. Text underscore date. Date picker. There's date picker timestamp, date time, time zone, all that. So we're going to do text underscore date. So we, this one, I'm not going to update my comments because I am a bad developer. So copyright date. We didn't prefix this one with book before. Date. There we go. Update file. Womp womp. Unexpected. CMB2 expecting parenthesis. Where did I break it? Somewhere here. We're going to get rid of this option. Right there. Missing an apostrophe. File edited successfully. Let's go back to our plugins. And our CMB2 and book information are activated. Go back to posts and edit. And there we are. And it didn't get the author and it didn't get the ISBN, probably because I named them wrong. But in fact, you know what? Let's go back here. And betcha, this one is just ISBN. Yep. So if I had named the fields properly, it would have brought in the same data, which means that's how you can move from one library to another. If you're using CMB2 and you want Metabox, fine, just recreate your fields, use the same field names, and you will get all your data back, which is really useful. A few style things, you'll note that the URL field is shorter than the text. Copyright date is quite short. I mentioned you could start it with it closed, so it could start like this if you wanted. And while we're here, I want to show you what these look like in the classic editor, because they'll probably look really familiar. So it looks like this kind of box. And again, you can close it or not. So let's turn off the classic editor and go back to our slides real quick. So some pros about CMB2. It can be included as a library anywhere. There are no restrictions. 100% GPL, 100% free. Good stuff. It is code-based, so it's very, very fast, just like Metabox.io. There's a very complete set of field types. It's really, really excellent. There's also a set of developer-contributed field types. those are here. So these are all different kinds of libraries. There's conditional display, custom field types, custom meta boxes. You can make options and settings pages, user meta, widgets, all kinds of stuff. Let's see, under MISC. In here is where I found the ratings for stars and stuff like that. You can add a word count. You can add a field in the publish box. There's just all kinds of stuff in here. So that's really, really useful. Cons, that's no longer under active development, which is very sad. Bug fixes come out occasionally, but nobody's really working on it. There's no commercial support. Again, I said this is 100% GPL, 100% free. And last is no GUI. And you may not think this is a con. Maybe it isn't for you. But for people who really like a GUI, it is. So next, we're going to look at advanced custom fields. Found at advancedcustomfields.com and wordpress.org. It is freemium. There's a free version. And otherwise, it's $49, $149, and $249. You can see their website right here. It's also on .org. Let me show you how to use that real quick, because it's a lot easier than the others. So I'm going to deactivate these two. And add new. I'm just going to search for ACF because I think that'll find it. Yes, advanced custom fields. Extended. That's not the one we want. That is an additional one. There we go. Advanced custom fields by Delicious Brains. Recently acquired. And there we are. We have advanced custom fields. Now, a big difference with advanced custom fields is that generally you don't write code into a plugin. It's all in the GUI. So there's a menu over here, and you can go to field groups and you won't find any. But we're going to add new, and we're going to call it book information. And right here is where we put our fields. But first we're going to say we want this to be on posts. But you could do things like if post status is something, or taxonomy is something, or you're using a template, or it's a current user, or if you're looking at a widget or something like that. And then over here, well, right now it's custom post types, but if you, do we have templates? Yeah, this theme only has default and page. So let's say category, probably uncategorized is all I have. Yeah, but you get the picture. So post type is post, and you can do conditionals and more options. There's a bunch of settings here. You can do active or not, standard Metabox is going to be high after title. No, we don't want that. Normal after content. Top aligned instructions are below labels. You can order it. You can hide all of this stuff on the screen if you want to. So let's add some fields. Book, author, boom, text type. And here are our types. Text area, password, range, uploads, choices, relational, jQuery stuff. There's our date picker. There's a map, all kinds of stuff like that. You can make it required, all this stuff. We're going to skip that. So we're going to close that field and add another one. And we'll call this one ISBN. And we're going to leave it at number or text. Nope, don't want to publish yet. I always want to publish when I'm doing this. So then add field and book URL, and type is URL. And with types can change what goes on down here. You have more and less options with different fields. And then lastly, I edit. Oop. We want to do book URL. There we go. This field. And then this one is going to be copyright date. And then down here, we'll choose date picker. And publish. No code written. But if we go to posts, there's our post type. And stylistically, you can see how it's different. The fields are all full length, 100% width, no matter what. The jQuery theme is a little different. The URL field has a little globe in it, stuff like that. Functionally, they're the same. As you can tell, I pulled in my data, but I couldn't remember my book author. If you click to go to edit field group, it takes you right back here. So that's all there is to making advanced custom fields. It's really powerful. So let's look at some pros and cons. It is by far the easiest of the three. There's no code to figure out. There's no docs to look up. You just pick and choose. It's a very powerful GUI. Now, I showed you the web-based GUI for Metabox.io. They have a plugin that works very much like the ACF one, so you don't have to use code. But that'll have its own issues, which I will talk about in just a sec. Extremely broad feature set. ACF is supported by nearly everyone. So WooCommerce, EDD, Search WP, Lifter LMS, all of them. Everybody supports ACF. And so you can do some pretty crazy customizations to everything, not just posts and pages and stuff like that. Vast community support. Lots and lots and lots of people are making add-ons for it. Tons of them. So there's probably something out there that you can use. And similar to Metabox.io, it can be used to make Gutenberg blocks without knowing React. Cons. Very heavy use of the database, making it the slowest of the three and practically unusable at scale. And when I say scale, I mean really big. I'm talking a million page views a day. Because all the settings and stuff are stored in the database. And so every time any page loads, even in the admin, it's hitting the database and gathering an enormous amount of information and bringing it back and building a UI out of it. If your site's relatively small, and I do mean relatively, it can be fairly big, much bigger than your blog, it'll be fine. It can't be embedded as a real library. You have to install it as a plugin, which means it makes it really difficult to ship a plugin that you write with ACF in it. You can make it a dependency with something like TGM, but you can't ship ACF right inside your plugin or theme. So we've made these metaboxes, but then what? What happens to that data? We're not going to really go into the code here. I'm going to show you just a little bit on web pages, but I'm not going to code like I did to build them. You'll need to be editing theme template files. If you don't know how to do that, it's not that hard. There are a zillion instructional information posts on the blog, on the web. It's not that hard. ACF and Metabox use custom template tags to get field values. Let me show you what I mean. Displaying fields right here. There are a couple options, actually. You can use a page builder. There's integration with Elementor, Beaver Builder, and several others. There's a plugin called MB Views, which lets you build templates. And then you can do it with code. And this is where you'd be hacking templates. And right here is a function called RWMB Meta. You put in the field ID, which for us would be something like book author or ISBN. Some arguments if you want, which you don't have to, and a post ID, which you usually don't have to because it gets it from the loop. And you don't even have to assign it to a value and echo it. You could just say echo RWMB value book author, and it would work. So for example, here's a really simple one, date of birth, DOB. So if our date field had been called DOB, you could just do this. If your field type holds an array of stuff, then you would assign it to a variable, and just loop over it. And here are its cousins, get value and the value. ACF uses something called get field. Works very, very much the same. The selector is our name, like book author or ISBN, post ID, which is optional, and format value, whether you want to apply any logic. There's a whole bunch of examples. Again, it's very simple. CMB2 uses standard WordPress functions to get field values, and that would be get post meta, which requires a post ID, even if you're in the loop. But that's easy. You just use a function like get the ID. Then the key, which would be ISBN or book author, and then single or not. The default is false. And in my experience, you almost always want true. If you're looking at your copyright date, you only have one in here, and so on. You can have multiples. So you would use those methods and functions to get the data and print it on your template. So let's summarize real quick. CMB2 is the most flexible when adding functionality to free projects. There are no restrictions. You can do anything you want. Downside is there's no current support for it. You're kind of on your own, and there's no GUI. So if you're not comfortable with code, CMB2 is probably not for you. Metabox has the most power and flexibility when working on commercial projects. And I say this because you can either do it straight code like CMB2, or you can get a little plugin and have the GUI like ACF. It goes both ways, and there's a ton of stuff there. It's really powerful and flexible. ACF is by far the easiest for beginners to get into. And it's fastest. I mean, even you saw me build that thing in ACF. It was still faster than doing it in the code. So, if your boss comes to you and says, hey, I need this thing up in 3 hours, you're probably going to use ACF because it's really fast. And then if you need to, you can refine it later with one of the others. And that's it. My name is Topher DeRosia, as I said. You can find me at those email addresses anywhere online. Feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to talk about it. I love doing this stuff. So look me up if you ever need anything. Thanks.
Hello, Topher.
Hello, hello.
Fascinating presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Very much. Yeah.
So,
I love doing that stuff. It's pretty nerdy, but everybody's got to geek out on something.
Audience, if you have any questions at all, go ahead and add it to the YouTube chat, and we will address them. I can see, at least in the chat, you've got one convert away from something called Untapped.
I don't know that one. What is Untapped?
I'm not certain.
I mean, I know it's a place you can list what beers you drink, but I don't know if it's going to help you with your custom fields.
Which option is easier to export or import data with?
They are all the same. The data is for all of them. The data is stored in standard post meta. And so if you're using like the normal WordPress import export, it's going to come in there. If you use any of the plugins that are used for moving your site from one place to another, it's going to get them all. They all use the exact same storage method. So they're going to be the same. Related, each of them can. I don't know how to say this. The best example is with ACF. You build your fields with a GUI, but you can export the code. You could take the code, turn off ACF, and embed that code, and it would work. So there's a pretty good exporter there, but that's not related to your data. That's more related to the structure of the thing itself. Your data is always stored the same with all three of them.
There's another question. Not sure what this means, but ACF changed that recently. I mean, has it? I guess maybe has it done like a major update?
I haven't kept up with that. It's entirely possible. Post meta can be slow, so if they started storing it in custom tables, that would be kind of cool. Like it would speed up everything. It would make it a little weirder for, like I pointed out that both ACF and Metabox have their own functions for getting stuff. You could use get option, because it stores it in the options table. But if ACF has started storing it in a custom table, then get option would not work. You'd have to use their own thing. So it's entirely possible. I haven't kept track. I'm a very much a terminal code kind of guy. I don't really use ACF. I respect it because it's powerful, and I've used it when I've inherited projects, but I prefer one of the other two.
Here's another question. Not sure if you covered this in the session. I missed half, but how well do these work with Gutenberg? I wasn't a big fan of how ACF did it.
Yeah, they all work basically the same way with Gutenberg because they just use Gutenberg's meta boxes. And I don't like the way Gutenberg handles meta boxes. I don't think they look nearly as nice. But they're all three gonna behave essentially the same. And that's however Gutenberg handles a meta box. You can put them in the side instead of underneath their content, and they fit nicely with all the other things there, like tags and categories and featured image. But all three of them are going to be the same essentially.
Next question. Would Metabox work to add a custom field to a WooCommerce checkout page?
Yes, I believe it would. I'm thinking through all the docs I've read. I haven't seen a specific doc on how to do it, but if a checkout page is a post, now let me think. So a checkout page is on the front end. Metabox is mostly made for adding fields on the back end. But I know you can, because there's a whole set of documentation about building a front end form with Metabox. So I bet a lot you can add a field to your checkout with Metabox. You would just need to know the name of the form, and I'm gonna dig myself a hole if I get too much deeper. But I'll bet it would work. The website for Metabox it's metabox.io, and they have really, really great docs. So I would check there.
All right. If there's no further questions, do you have any final thoughts, Topher?
Boy. Yeah, I used to be really opinionated about this. I used to say I'm never going to use ACF because of the speed related to the database issues. And I would always use CMB2, and I would never use Metabox because it's commercial. But kind of in the process of making this post, I came to realize they have very unique strengths, and there are silos in which you should obviously use one of them and not the others. And they're not all the same. In my talk, I mentioned that, if your boss comes to you and says, I need something built quickly, then ACF is the way to go. I mean, you can whip something out in a hurry, really, really fast. Some really cool stuff, not just like minor stuff. You can make some really dramatically cool things with ACF in a very short period of time. So that'd be an obvious time for that. I see a question about whether they work with the REST API. That's kind of it's not a good question. Because since they store, so most of them store as post meta. And so your question would be, is your post type working with the REST API? to provide all of its post meta. And if it is, then it's just going to work. Now, there was a question about ACF and storage. I'm going to guess a lot that ACF has made it so that their stuff works with REST API. That would be ridiculous if they didn't. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say yes. They'll all work with the REST API. Do I feel if Metabox is good for non-developers? This is a wonderful question because it is right in the middle between ACF, which is the best for non-developers, and CMB2, which is the worst for non-developers. Metabox can really go either way. In my talk, I showed a web tool to build your code, but if you pay for it, you can get a plugin that functions exactly like ACF, where you're not copying code around. You make your fields and boom, they're working just like ACF. And so Metabox is really the perfect way to move from ACF, which is zero code, to CMB, which is all code. And you can do it at your own pace. If you want to use Metabox and never code, you can totally do that. And if you want to start messing around with code, you can do that too. So yes, Metabox will work great for non-coders, but I'm going to say that it's ideal for people who want to start moving slowly from non-coder to coder.
Well, if you have no additional final thoughts, I guess we'll wrap this up.
All right.
Okay. Thank you all
Thanks
for
for having me.
attending this session with Topher. You can continue the conversation with him in the Slack channel or by contacting Topher at Topher1Kenobi on Twitter. Is that correct?
That is exactly right.
All right. Don't forget to attend the next talk, Creating a Portfolio Website with Custom Post Types with Joseph Dixon, here at 3 p.m. on the same channel. We'll see you right after the break.